Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and today I have a discussion video for you. So, the Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee has given me lots of thought on the topics you will see in the title below. First, the book made me thought of it, then in the afterword, the author actually talked about it, is people will tell authors not to make their 16th century, 12th century, 18th century women have current day views. So you're supposed to write a woman in a non-sexist way, but she can't be a feminist because she's in the 16th century, because they didn't have feminism. No, as this author says in her post-book discussion, there have always been people who didn't think the thing that everybody else thought. In a society full of people, you do have a majority view. You also have a minority view, and then you have each individual having a different variety of those views and other views. The idea of equality is not new. It was no doubt expressed in different words in different centuries, but it's not new. Now, where I can totally see people having a problem is if women in these times live in a totally sexist society and their family is totally sexist and everyone they know is sexist, and then they are a totally self-assured feminist. That's a bit weird, because when everyone in the world is telling you you're wrong, it's very hard to be sure of yourself. It's kind of more likely that you would have these ideas about equality, but you would either keep them to yourself or only voice them sort of with a fair amount of hesitation, whether they be because you're not sure of yourself or because you're afraid of backlash. But women with strong personalities have always existed. Women who have wanted to be powerful physically rather than just through manipulating people have always existed. Men who don't think women are chattel or bugs to be trod upon have always existed. And despite various religions being the big thing in various geographical locations at different times, there have always been people who don't actually believe that religion, or who believe parts of religion but don't believe other parts. Specifically, a lot of people will say Christianity was the ruling train of thought in this area in this time, so everybody thought this way. Everybody has never all thought the same way. Well, yes, Christianity has often been used as a club to beat down women, LGBTQ plus people, and anyone else that people in power find convenient. There have always been people who didn't believe in that interpretation of it. Now, another thing that comes up is using specific language that is very modern or that has just started to be used in discourse about these topics, feminism, gay rights, etc. Using this new modern language and putting it in the mouth of someone from the 16th or 18th centuries seems a bit weird. It was a bit weird when Felicity was talking and basically spouted off a Tumblr post. And I don't mean she said something that someone who spends a lot of time on Tumblr might say. I mean, literally, I've seen a post that addressed that specific thing in that specific way. And so that can feel kind of out of place and make sense that you would kind of feel pulled out of a story or feel that it's unrealistic if you read that. However, in order for this book to be realistic, it would have to be written in Jane Austen English, which wasn't that bad. It wasn't the way that most books that are now set in the 1800s Jane Austen era are written. Most of them are written more in language from the 1950s type of time. The old words that Jane Austen used that we don't use in our language anymore have been gotten rid of. A lot of the new slang isn't used. They tend to reach kind of back for the slang, but not all the way to Jane Austen's era, usually more like the 1900s. And to be accurate to a story that is set in, say, the 1200s, you would have to be using Old English or even something earlier than that. It was a long time ago when I studied when the different Englishes came in, but between the year 1000 and the year now, there were multiple different iterations of English because of Germans and French people, and it was all screwed up. So, to have a story that is legible today, you can't use the actual language from that time. Also, if you are writing a story set in not England, and you want to write it for English-speaking readers, you can't use the language from that time. So, why is it more okay to use language from the 1950s than from the 2010s? Yeah, it would be weird if you said that the same ideas that are widespread now were widespread then, or if you said that there was a whole movement back then that had the same ideas as a new movement now, that'd be weird. But as an individual, people think in all different ways. There's no really logical way to say that that individual couldn't have had that thought. And also, as I said in my ASPEC April wrap-up, Felicity of The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, Felicity didn't have the words asexual and aromantic, but she did have the experience of being those things. So rather than being able to say she was asexual, she would say, I'm not interested in doing that with anyone. That doesn't sound like fun. Instead of being able to say she was aromantic, she would say, I've never fallen in love with anyone. I don't really want to fall in love with anyone. While sometimes it might be inappropriate to use words that now have all these definitions and connotations behind them that people can instantly understand but wouldn't have known in historical context. Kind of like when you're translating between your language and another person. If you have some of the other person's language and they have some of yours, if you don't have a word in the other person's language, you can kind of talk around it in your language and talk around it in their language, and eventually you two will click and figure out what the heck you're talking about. It makes perfect sense that people of any era would be able to talk around these subjects enough to get another person to understand them. They can talk about these modern topics without using the words that people have only invented recently. So, kind of two ways of doing it, or of course anyone can meld these two. I'd love to know your thoughts, and if you have more ideas about how modern authors can express the things that they want to talk about while setting their characters in a historical time, I'd love to know those. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!